The sky above Arendor 7 was a strange mix of deep indigo and streaks of green aurora, a constant reminder that this world was beautiful, but deadly. The wind swept across the jagged cliffs, carrying a cold so sharp it cut through the thickest layers of clothing. Humanity had arrived here decades ago, hoping to build a colony and make a new life. Instead, they had found a planet that demanded constant vigilance, a place where survival was never certain. Commander Alex Rayner stood on the observation deck of Fort Aurora, the colony's main settlement. His hands rested on the railing and his eyes scanned the horizon where jagged mountains met the endless sky. The colony had been under attack for weeks, not by other humans but by the planet itself. Predators, native beasts with razor teeth and armor-like skin, had grown bolder. Even the safest areas were no longer safe. Alex turned as Lieutenant Mara Hayes approached. She held a small data pad, her expression tense. "Commander," she said, "another hunting party didn't return. We're losing too many people out there." Alex's jaw tightened. "I know, Mara, that's why we're sending the message. We have no choice. We've defended ourselves as long as we could, but we can't fight them forever." The distress signal had been prepared for days. The colony's engineers, exhausted and tense, had boosted the transmission power far beyond what was normally allowed. The message was simple: humans need help. Not guidance, not trade, help. They sent it into deep space, hoping that someone, anyone, would respond. As the signal shot out into the dark void, Alex felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold wind. He knew the risks. Arendor 7 was isolated, and no one really knew what could come in answer to their call. But no one had expected this. That night, the colony's alarm screamed. A loud, deep rumble shook the ground as shadows moved across the jagged cliffs. The first monster arrived. It was massive, easily twice the height of a human, with limbs that ended in claw-like appendages and eyes that glowed with an unnatural orange light. Its skin was mottled gray and green, almost camouflaged against the rocky terrain. "Get inside." "Now!" Alex shouted, his voice cutting through the panic. The colonists scrambled, barricading doors and gathering whatever weapons they could find. The creature was followed by others, smaller, faster, more cunning. They moved in patterns that suggested intelligence, surrounding the colony, cutting off escape routes. The colonists had never seen anything like this. These were not the wild animals of Arendor 7. These were different, strange, terrifying. Alex grabbed a plasma rifle and ran toward the perimeter with a small team. Mara followed closely, carrying a heavy energy launcher. "We need to hold them here until everyone is safe," Alex shouted. "If they get inside, it's over." The battle was chaos. The monsters were relentless, striking in coordinated waves. Some leaped from the cliffs, landing with earth-shaking force. Others burrowed through the ground, appearing suddenly inside the colony's walls. The colonists fired back with every weapon they had, but bullets and energy blasts barely slowed them. Despite the fear, the humans fought with determination. Alex noticed patterns in the monsters' attacks. They communicated in strange hisses and growls, sometimes retreating when trapped or outnumbered. The colonists began to use this to their advantage, setting traps along the cliff edges and leading the monsters into narrow corridors where they could not maneuver. Hours passed like minutes. The night was long and filled with screams, explosions, and the roar of the monsters. Alex felt exhaustion creeping in, but there was no time to rest. Every time one monster fell, another seemed to take its place. The colonists were running out of ammunition, and the walls of Fort Aurora had begun to crack under the constant assault. Then, a strange sound echoed across the colony, a deep, low hum that seemed to vibrate through the bones. The monsters froze, their glowing eyes scanning the horizon. Alex looked up and saw something that made his stomach drop. The sky was rippling, almost like water. Strange lights began to twist and shimmer above them, forming shapes that seemed impossible. The colonists gasped, unsure if this was another attack or some unknown phenomenon. Mara whispered, "Commander, what is that?" "I don't know," Alex said, his voice tight. "But stay alert. The monsters are paying attention too." Sure enough, the largest monster lifted its head, letting out a shrill cry that echoed across the cliffs. The others stopped attacking and gathered as if receiving some signal from the sky. The lights pulsed faster, and then, without warning, the monsters charged with even more fury. Alex realized the horrifying truth. Their distress signal had not brought help from the stars. It had drawn the monsters of Earth to them. The colonists had sent a message hoping for allies, but they had unknowingly invited something far worse. These monsters were fast, intelligent, and seemingly endless. They moved in coordinated attacks, testing the colony's defenses, learning, adapting. "Fall back to the inner walls," Alex ordered. "We cannot hold them at the perimeter any longer." The colonists retreated, carrying the wounded and firing at anything that came close. They reached the inner courtyard, where heavier defenses awaited. Explosives had been set up along the walls, energy turrets charged, and barricades reinforced. But even these measures seemed fragile against the relentless horde. In the chaos, Alex saw Private Renko, a young colonist, trapped by a burrowing creature. Without thinking, he sprinted across the courtyard, firing his rifle to distract the monster and pulling Renko to safety. Another colonist, Mara, fired the energy launcher, sending a wave of plasma that cut a path for them to retreat. Despite their bravery, the losses were mounting. Bodies of colonists and monsters alike littered the ground. The screams of the wounded mingled with the roaring. The sun rose over the jagged cliffs of Arendor 7, casting long shadows across the battered colony. Fort Aurora was quiet, but the silence was tense. Commander Alex Rayner walked through the inner courtyard, surveying the damage. Walls were cracked, barricades splintered, and the ground was littered with the remains of the monsters and the injured colonists. Lieutenant Mara Hayes approached, carrying the datapad with new scans from the previous night. "Commander," she said, "we've studied the monsters' behavior. They communicate. They retreat when outnumbered or trapped, and they respond to patterns." Alex's brow furrowed. "Patterns? So they learn?" "Yes, they're smart, Commander. Smarter than we thought." Alex took a deep breath. "Then we have to be smarter. If we want to survive, we have to think like them and stay one step ahead." The colonists began working with a new sense of purpose. Engineers repaired walls and reinforced barricades. Scientists studied monster tracks and hunting patterns. Hunters and soldiers trained in coordinated teams, practicing ambushes and escape strategies. Even civilians joined in, crafting traps and weapons from the colony's limited resources. Alex formed an elite team to lead the counterattack. Mara, expert in energy weapons. Renko, fast and resourceful scout. Dr. Leon, a biologist studying the monster's weaknesses, and a few others who had proven themselves in the first attack. Together, they devised a plan to turn the planet's own dangers against the monsters. "Our goal," Alex explained, "is to make them think they are hunting us, when really we are hunting them. Every trap, every diversion, every fight will be in our favor. We fight smart, not just hard." The first operation began at dusk. Using the natural terrain, the team set up traps along narrow canyons and cliff edges. Alex and Renko led the monsters on a chase, drawing them toward the hidden explosives and pit traps. Mara's energy launcher and the automated turrets were positioned to strike at precise moments. The monsters came, as expected, fast, coordinated, and aggressive. But this time the humans were ready. Alex and his team led them into the first trap. A massive pit opened beneath a group of the creatures, sending them tumbling into a canyon below. Explosives ignited in a synchronized sequence, cutting off their retreat. The monsters roared, furious but undeterred. They regrouped and tried to flank the colony, but Dr. Leon had anticipated this. She had set decoy paths lined with motion sensors and alarms. When the monsters entered these areas, automated turrets fired precise energy blasts, slowing their advance and forcing them back. The humans had turned fear into advantage. Each movement, each decision was calculated. Every trap taught the monsters caution, but the humans adapted faster. It was not brute force that would win this war. It was human ingenuity. Over the next several days, skirmishes became more frequent, but less deadly for the colonists. Alex noticed that the monsters were learning too. They avoided some traps, changed their attack patterns, and even coordinated in larger groups. Yet, each encounter revealed new weaknesses. Dr. Leon discovered that the monsters' glowing eyes were sensitive to intense light. Mara built portable blinding devices that could disorient the creatures during attacks. Renko observed that the monsters were slower on the rocky ridges than on flat terrain, giving the humans a strategic advantage in certain areas. Each victory was small but meaningful. The colonists began to regain confidence. Children once hidden in bunkers now helped carry supplies and set simple traps. Adults repaired walls, tending to the wounded while preparing for the next assault. Every human action, from the tiniest repair to the boldest maneuver, demonstrated a growing mastery over the planet's deadly challenges. One night, as the two moons of Arendor 7 cast pale light across the colony, Alex gathered the team. "Tomorrow," he said, "we strike at the largest threat, the Alpha monster. It leads the others, coordinates their attacks. If we take it down, the rest will falter." The plan was daring. They would lure the Alpha into the central canyon, where explosives and energy traps were already prepared. Mara would provide cover from above. Renko would guide the Alpha along a narrow path, forcing it into the trap. The rest of the team would cut off escape routes and support the operation. The night passed slowly, each minute heavy with tension. The Alpha appeared as expected, towering, fierce, and intelligent. Its claws dug into the rocks and its glowing eyes scanned the surroundings for threats. Alex signaled the team and the chase began. The Alpha lunged forward, following Renko through the canyon. Mara fired precise energy blasts, forcing it along the intended path. The rest of the team activated traps as planned. The monster fell into the central pit, triggering explosives that sealed the canyon. The blast echoed across the cliffs, shaking the ground and scattering the remaining monsters. For a moment, there was silence. The colony held its collective breath. Then slowly cheers rose from the humans. They had won. Not through superior size or strength, but through planning, teamwork, and courage. The victory, however, came with costs. Several colonists were injured and some would never return. Alex walked among the survivors, seeing the exhaustion and relief on their faces. He realized that survival on Arendor 7 was not just about fighting monsters. It was about human spirit, unity, and resilience. Dr. Leon approached him, holding a tablet with new readings. "Commander," she said, "there may be more monsters out there, but they are scattered. The colony has time to rebuild and strengthen defenses." Alex nodded. "Good, and we will. They came for us, but we proved that humanity is not easily defeated. We adapt, we endure, and we fight together." The colonists began rebuilding with renewed energy. Walls were reinforced, barricades upgraded, and traps improved. They trained harder, prepared smarter, and shared knowledge. Every human action was a step toward mastery over the planet and its dangers. Even in the darkest moments, the colony's spirit had grown stronger. Alex walked through the settlement, seeing children playing cautiously, adults repairing structures, and soldiers patrolling with confidence. Humanity had faced monsters that should have destroyed them, but they had survived, and they had grown stronger because of it. Weeks later, the colony sent another signal into space. Not a plea for help, but a warning. The message told other civilizations that humans were not helpless, that they could face dangers no one else could, and that their courage and ingenuity made them formidable. Alex stood on the observation deck once more, looking at the